My daughter-in-law's family called me and said, "Now that we're family, prepare your haul. We're having our program in 3 hours. Move your things to the basement. We'll bring the rest." That was the moment I knew they thought I was weak. Not just old. Not just alone. Weak. They saw my house as a free banquet hall, my silence as agreement, and my hospitality as permission. They didn't ask. They instructed. And everyone, including my own son, acted like I should be grateful just to be included. So I smiled. I opened the door, and I let them throw their little party. What they didn't know was that I'd already sold the house, and I'd timed the buyer's arrival to the exact moment they popped the champagne. What happened next was rather surprising. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you're watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. I was cleaning out the gutters when the phone rang. The sun was sharp that day, cutting across the backyard in golden stripes, and the leaves had started piling up early this year. I always liked this kind of work. Hands busy, mind quiet. I wasn't built for idle days, even in retirement. The house had kept me company since my wife passed 3 years ago, and I'd kept it in shape the way she would have wanted, orderly, polished, full of quiet pride. So when my phone buzzed in my back pocket, I climbed down the ladder with the kind of slow, deliberate care that comes with age, and wiped my hands on my jeans before answering. It was my daughter-in-law's sister, Karen. I'd only met her twice. Once at the wedding rehearsal, where she acted like she was on a red carpet, and once at Christmas, where she told me how cute my house was, like I'd glued it together with popsicle sticks. "Hello," I said. She didn't even say hi. "Now that we're family," she began, in that syrupy, artificial tone women like her use when they're about to bulldoze you. "We've decided to host Priya's prayer program at your place." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "We'll be there in 3 hours. We need the main hall cleared, so move any personal belongings into the basement. We'll bring the decorations and food. Just keep the door open." Just like that. No question, no consideration, just a declaration, like she was talking to a concierge, not the man who paid off this mortgage 20 years ago. "I'm sorry," I repeated, firmer this time. "You're planning to use my house? Today?" "Yes," she said, like I was the one being difficult. "It's just a gathering." Priya said it'd be no problem. I felt my jaw tighten, my grip on the phone stiffening. "Priya doesn't own this house." "I do." She laughed. "Come on, uncle. Don't be old-fashioned. We're family now." And then she hung up. I just stood there, phone in hand, my chest tight. The ladder leaned against the wall beside me, and for a moment, I stared at it, wondering if I'd just dreamt the whole conversation. But no, I knew that tone. I'd heard it before, back when my brother tried to borrow money after Mom died and never paid it back. That same entitled drawl masked with sweet words. That fake kindness that only hides greed. I didn't know what shook me more, that she'd just assumed I'd say yes, or that she'd decided to tell me instead of ask. Inside, I found myself walking room to room like I was seeing my house for the first time, as if it were already slipping away. The hardwood I'd installed myself. The photos lining the staircase, all arranged in order: wedding, baby, school, college. The recliner that still smelled faintly of my wife's lavender spray. Was all of this just a stage now? A free venue for people who never cared to ask? I sat down on the edge of the couch, staring at nothing. A memory surfaced. Priya's first visit here, months before the wedding. She'd walked around the house silently, not impressed, not warm, just observing. At the time, I thought she was shy. Now I wondered if she was inventorying. My son, Rishi, hadn't mentioned anything about this. Then again, he'd changed since the wedding. Busier. Distracted. Always siding with her family when conflicts came up. "They're just expressive," he'd told me once, after Karen insulted my cooking at a dinner party. "Don't take it personally." I never did. Until now. 3 hours. That's what she gave me. 3 hours to erase my presence from my own house so they could play host. I stood up, heart pounding, and went to the basement. I didn't move my belongings, but I did move one thing. A small, worn wooden box that sat on the top shelf of the storage unit. Inside it were old blueprints, business cards, and notes from my contracting days. I hadn't touched them in years. I carried it upstairs, placed it on the kitchen counter, and opened the lid. And that's when the ideas started to form. Not full revenge, not yet, but something darker than passive tolerance. A seed of resistance. Let them come. Let them walk into this house with their bags of catered food and plastic banners and god-awful speakers. Let them taste what it means to take a man for granted in his own home. By 3:10 p.m., they were on my front porch, Karen in a fuchsia lehenga, her makeup thick enough to crack, flanked by two men carrying silver platters. My daughter-in-law Priya was behind them, looking nervous, avoiding eye contact. Karen knocked once and pushed the door open herself. "Uncle," she chirped. "Did you move the furniture? We brought some carpets." I stood in the hallway, arms crossed, not smiling. "No," I said. She stopped. "What?" "I didn't move anything." She blinked, fake smile flickering. "Well, we'll just do it then." "No," I said again, stepping forward. "You won't." The silence that followed was long and heavy. Even the guys behind her paused. Karen's voice dropped half a pitch. "Excuse me. I didn't agree to this," I said, voice steady. "You assumed. That was your mistake." Priya finally looked at me. "Appa, I didn't think it'd be a big deal." "You didn't ask if it was a big deal." I snapped, sharper than I intended. Her face fell. Karen stepped between us. "You're being dramatic. It's just a few hours. You're not even using the space." "That's not the point." She rolled her eyes. "Well, it's done. People are on the way. Food is ordered. Are you going to ruin your own daughter-in-law's celebration because of ego?" I took a long breath. "Because of boundaries," I said. She laughed again, short and cruel. "Wow. Okay. So you're really that type of father-in-law, huh?" "I guess I am." I stepped back, letting the silence answer for me. They stood there, uncomfortable, unsure what to do next. Eventually, Priya spoke, voice low. "Let's just go to the community center." Karen hissed something to her, but Priya ignored it. "Appa's right. We didn't ask." Karen looked furious, but she turned and left without another word. I didn't say goodbye. That night, I sat in the backyard with a tumbler of whiskey and watched the sunset slide across the sky. The silence in the house felt different now, no longer lonely. It was powerful. They thought I'd cave. They thought that being family meant I'd hand over everything I built without a word. But I wasn't done setting boundaries. I just started. They came back 5 days later. I wasn't surprised. People like that don't hear no as a boundary. They hear it as a delay. And Karen? Karen struck me as the type who believed persistence made her right. I could see it in the way she walked, like the ground should be grateful she stepped on it. I was in the kitchen sipping my tea when I heard the doorbell. I checked the clock. 11:47 a.m. Too early for guests. I opened the door, and sure enough, there they were, Karen, Priya, and this time, their mother, a woman I hadn't seen since the wedding, dressed like she was heading to a film premiere. She was holding a Tupperware tray like it was a peace offering, but her eyes had the same look I'd seen in every real estate agent who ever tried to lowball me on a flip, calculating, pleasant, and dangerous. "Uncle." Karen smiled like nothing had happened. "We brought lunch." I didn't move from the doorway. "You didn't call." "Oh, come on," she said, brushing past me like I was a tree stump. "It's our house too now. No need for formalities." "Our," I repeated, eyebrows raised. Priya walked in quietly behind her, avoiding my gaze. Her mother offered a short, sharp nod and placed the tray on my kitchen counter like she was blessing it. I watched as they began opening drawers, checking cabinets, walking through my living room like it was an open house. "Can I help you with something?" I asked, keeping my voice measured. Karen plopped onto my couch, kicked off her shoes, bare feet on my coffee table, and pulled out her phone. "We're planning a dinner for my parents' anniversary. Just a small one. Maybe 40 people. And we figured, why rent a place when we have this perfect setup?" I turned to Priya. "Did you know about this?" She hesitated. "They just brought it up today." Liar. Her voice cracked on just. She'd known. She just didn't want to be in the crosshairs. Her mother chimed in, voice syrupy. "Uncle, we want to do everything respectfully. But you have such a beautiful home. Why not share it? In our family, we believe in generosity." I stared at her for a long time. "In my family," I said, "we believe in asking permission." Karen groaned, dramatically. Okay, you made your point last time." We should have asked. But we're asking now, aren't we? That wasn't a question, it was a setup. A trap. Say no, and I'm the difficult father-in-law. Say yes, and I hand them the keys to my life. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked around, at my walls, my furniture, the home I'd built with my wife, one repair and one memory at a time. And I realized something. They didn't see this place as mine. They saw it as ours. As something absorbed into their world the moment my son said, I do. To them, marriage meant ownership, not just of the relationship, but of everything connected to it. And I wasn't going to be steamrolled into submission. Karen stood up suddenly. Can we just do a quick walkthrough? I want to see if we'll need extra seating in the backyard. No, I said. She paused, blinked. Excuse me. You can't use the house. Not for the dinner. Not for anything. Uncle, be serious. I am being serious. I didn't build this home for it to be used like a party rental. Her mother's face hardened. You're taking this too personally. I'm not taking it personally at all, I said. You're just not entitled to what you didn't earn. That's when Karen snapped. She turned, voice raised. Wow, you're really going to be that guy? The grumpy old man who ruins every family occasion. I didn't move. If that's the role I have to play to keep my home mine, then yes. You don't get it, she spat. We're not trying to take over. We're trying to include you. No, I said, stepping closer. You're trying to absorb me. There's a difference. The silence after that was thick. Priya finally looked at me. Really looked, and for a second, I saw a guilt flicker in her eyes. But she said nothing. She just stood there, small, quiet, neutral. Like always. Karen grabbed her bag. Come on, she snapped. We'll figure something else out. As they left, her mother gave me one last look. Cold, unreadable. This isn't over, she said softly. I smiled. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. That evening, I called Carl. Carl was my best friend for over 30 years, and the closest thing I had to a brother now. He'd seen me through the grief, the quiet months after retirement, and every broken pipe and crooked contractor the city had thrown my way. When I told him what happened, he laughed so hard I thought he'd choke on his sandwich. You're telling me they tried to requisition your house like it's government property? Exactly that. And Priya? Silent. Rishi, worse, said I should be more flexible. Carl went quiet for a second. You thinking what I'm thinking? He asked. I was already nodding. Sell it. He whistled. Damn. You serious? I can't live like this, Carl. It's not about this dinner or that prayer meeting. It's the entitlement. The disrespect. They think they've inherited me. Carl grunted. Well, I know a guy. Young couple. Been looking for a turnkey property. Good people. Send me his number. You're really gonna go through with it? I looked around the house again. And this time, I didn't feel regret. Just relief. It didn't stop after that. They backed off for a few days, just enough to make me wonder if maybe, just maybe, they got the message. But people like Karen don't retreat. They reload. The next time it happened, it wasn't even them. It was Rishi. He dropped by on a Saturday morning. No call, no text. Just walked in like it was still the house he grew up in, not the one he'd abandoned to become part of someone else's dynasty. He used to bring donuts when he visited. This time he came with a roll of blueprints. I want to talk to you about the backyard, he said, spreading them out on the dining table like we were business partners. Priya thinks it's underutilized. Karen's friend is a landscape designer. She drew up some concepts. I stared at the lines and swirls of concrete paths and deck spaces, feeling my ears ring. Underutilized? Yeah, we could open it up, make it more functional. Add a pergola here, maybe a bar area. Rishi, I said, my voice calm but tight. Who said anything about changing the backyard? He didn't look up. It's just an idea. For the family. For whose family? He hesitated. Ours. All of us. I folded the blueprint back up and slid it across the table. This is my home, not a community center. Rishi exhaled like I was the unreasonable one. Dad, you're alone in this house. It's too big for you. You should want people around. I want respect, I said. He frowned. That's not fair. What's not fair, I said slowly, is being treated like a caretaker in my own home. Like I'm holding space for the real owners to arrive. That's not how we see it. No? Then why am I constantly being asked to move aside? Clear the living room. Hand over the keys. Renovate the backyard. All for someone else's vision of family. He crossed his arms. You're making this bigger than it is. No, son. You're making it smaller than it is. We stared at each other for a long time. And then he said the one thing that sealed it. You should be grateful we want to include you. Grateful? That word rattled in my chest like a curse. Grateful for what? For being tolerated? For being treated like a landlord who doesn't collect rent? I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just stood up and said, meeting's over. The next morning, I called Carl again. Give your guy my number. I'm ready. He sent me a contact named Melissa. Young, sharp, quiet. She met me 2 days later and walked through the house with the kind of reverence I hadn't seen in years. You've taken good care of it, she said, tracing her hand along the oak banister. I built half of it myself. Any rush on the sale? I'd like it done before their next event. She smiled. Got it. I didn't tell Rishi. I didn't tell anyone. I let them keep planning. 2 days later, I overheard Priya on the phone in my kitchen. She didn't know I was in the hallway. Karen, yes, I told you. He's just being difficult. But I think if we just start prepping for the engagement party, he'll cave. He always does. I stood there, behind the door frame, and I felt something break loose inside me. Not anger. Not hurt. Clarity. She thought I'd cave. Again. That's when I knew I had to go through with it. No hesitation. No guilt. I'd spent too much of my life providing a home for people who now saw it as a stage prop. Let them find out the hard way. That weekend, they brought decorations. Not just boxes, but trucks. 2 white rental vans parked in front of my house, their engines humming as people carried in crates of fabric, LED string lights, boxes labeled gift table, photo booth, catering kits. They didn't knock. They didn't greet me. They walked past me with the same dead-eyed entitlement as if I were a tree or a lamp. Priya smiled like she was doing me a favor. Just storing them here until Saturday. What's Saturday? She blinked. You didn't hear? I raised an eyebrow. Cousin Mira's engagement party. It's gonna be beautiful, Appa. We'll keep the noise down. You're having it here? Karen sent out the invitations already. I took a long breath. You didn't even ask. She had the nerve to look offended. We didn't think we needed to. You've been so generous in the past. I laughed. I actually laughed. Generous. She tilted her head, voice soft. Appa, don't be like this. Like what? So territorial. It's just one night. But it wasn't one night. It was never just one night. It was a slow erasure. One assumption after another, until my life became their backdrop. That night, I called Melissa. We'll list it Tuesday, I told her. And I want a cash buyer, fast close. Already got one in mind, she said. Good. Let them decorate. Let them plan. Let them invite 100 people. Because in just a few days, they'd be partying in someone else's house. I started smiling. That's how they knew something was wrong, but they didn't know what. Karen would come in barking orders. Move this table. Uncle, we'll hang the lights here. And I'd nod, hands behind my back, looking every bit the agreeable old man they thought I was. The kind of man too tired to fight, too polite to push back. Let them think I'd folded. That was the best part. Because while they were measuring the living room for buffet tables and talking about turning the garage into a dance floor, I was walking Melissa and her buyers through the backyard. They're newlyweds. Melissa whispered to me as we stood beneath the mango tree I'd planted 25 years ago. Both teachers. They want something move-in ready. No drama. No drama, I repeated, almost laughing. Perfect. We closed escrow in 3 days. Cash. Clean. No contingencies. The buyers wanted to move in the following Monday, just 2 days after the engagement party. I told them, with a smile, you should come early. You'll get to see exactly why I'm leaving. Karen brought in the decorators the next day. A crew of 4 men rolled up with ladders and silver crates of what looked like wedding materials. They walked right past me like I wasn't even there. They started mounting brackets into my crown molding without asking, hammering nails into the archways my wife once painted by hand. I just sat at the kitchen table, reading the newspaper. They didn't offer an explanation. They didn't offer thanks. Just noise and commands and the occasional forced, high-pitched uncle. Can you move? By evening, the house didn't look like mine anymore. It looked like a banquet hall wearing a cheap costume, plastic chandeliers, silk drapes over my wooden cabinets, floral centerpieces on my antique dining table. But I stayed calm. I even complimented one of the guys on his lighting rig. Karen beamed at me. See? I knew you'd come around. I nodded. You were right. Rishi showed up later that night with a box of champagne and the worst timing of his life. Dad, he said, clapping my shoulder. Thanks for being cool about this. I'm always cool, I said. He laughed. Priya said you've been really chill lately. Like Zen. She's not wrong. He looked around. You know, this party could be the beginning of something. We've been talking about hosting more often. Big family get-togethers. Birthdays. Holi. Diwali. Everything here. I sipped my tea and let that sink in. They weren't just using my home for this party. They were annexing it. Bit by bit. Turning it into a family headquarters. Without permission. Without ownership. It was the long game. But I just outplayed them. You do what you need to do, son, I said, standing up. I've got plans too. The next day, Melissa texted. Deal closed. Congrats. Do you want to deliver the keys? I smiled. No. I want them to walk in during the party. Seriously? Trust me. They'll never forget it. The day of the party was chaos. SUVs pulled up before noon. Women in saris streamed into my foyer with curling irons and makeup kits, like my home was a backstage dressing room. Karen had hired a photographer who brought lights and a fog machine. I swear to God, there was a fog machine in my living room. The music started around 4 p.m. Loud. Obnoxious. Bass rattled my kitchen cabinets while a guy in a headset shouted over a mic, directing everyone like a stage manager. No one noticed me. I was invisible now, and it was glorious. At 5:15 p.m., I walked into the hallway, where Priya was fussing with her jewelry. You look nice, I said. She looked surprised to see me. Appa, thank you. Are you staying for the ceremony? Oh, I'll be here, I said, with a little smile. At 5:30 p.m. sharp, Melissa and the new homeowners arrived. They stood on the porch, eyes wide, mouths open. This is insane, the husband whispered. Should we come back? No, I said. Come in. Welcome home. I stepped aside, let them walk in, and closed the door behind them. They stood in the foyer, stunned, as a woman in heels pushed past with a tray of champagne glasses. Karen noticed first. Her face twisted. Who are they? These are the new owners, I said, loud enough to quiet half the room. This is their house now. Dead silence. Someone dropped a spoon. Karen blinked. What? I sold the house, I said. Last week. Today's the handover. Priya froze. Rishi looked like someone had pulled the air out of his lungs. Karen stepped forward. This is a joke, right? No joke. You're in someone else's home now. Hope you asked them for permission. Her voice shot up. You're insane. You can't just. I can't, I said. And I did. The photographer tried to keep filming. Melissa stepped in and said, You need to leave. Rishi looked at me, betrayed. Dad, why would you do this? I shrugged. You told me I should be grateful. This is me, expressing my gratitude. Karen screamed at me in the driveway, demanding I cancel the sale, threatening to sue, to expose me on social media. I stood there, watching her rant in full makeup and heels on the sidewalk of a house that wasn't hers. And I felt nothing but peace. Priya cried. Rishi said nothing. Guests left in waves. Decorations were ripped down in a panic. The fog machine was dragged out and dumped in the rain. And me? I sat on the porch with Melissa and the new couple, sipping tea. You okay? She asked. I smiled. Never better. They didn't leave right away, even after I told them. Even after the new homeowners walked in. After the music cut and the guests started murmuring, Karen and her mother and that entire clan hovered around the front yard like they were waiting for someone to wake them from a bad dream. Priya stood next to Rishi, pale and shaken, mascara beginning to run. You sold it? She asked again, like maybe hearing it differently would change what was happening. I did, I said, calm as ever. To them, yes. They made a fair offer. No strings attached. Karen's mouth hung open. You can't sell the house during our event. I turned to her, finally, and let the cold settle into my voice. You don't live here. You don't pay for anything here. You don't even ask to use it. What made you think you had any say in what I do with my home? Her mother stepped forward like she was about to scold a child. In our culture, elders share. You've embarrassed this entire family. Your family, I said. Not mine. The air shifted. People had stepped out onto the lawn. Guests. Neighbors. Curious eyes peeked out from behind parked cars and down the sidewalk. And I knew what was coming. Because people like Karen don't take a hit quietly. They throw tantrums. They spin stories. They perform for the crowd. You sold this house to strangers just to spite us, she shouted. You humiliated me. My family. You humiliated yourselves, I said. All I did was stop pretending to be okay with it. Rishi stepped between us then, hands up. Dad, this is extreme. You blindsided us. I turned to him. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. No, son. I've been telling you. You just didn't listen. He shook his head, quiet. We could have talked about this. Could we? I asked. Because last time I tried, you told me I should be grateful. The silence that followed that sentence was deafening. Karen scoffed. Oh my God. You're so emotional. All of this, just because we planned a few events. I stepped forward, just enough to make her stop talking. You saw my home as a venue. You talked to me like I was staff. You walked through my doors like it was your birthright. But you forgot something important. You never earned this. You were a guest. And now, you're not even that. The crowd began to break up as the new homeowners politely started ushering people off the lawn. Karen's voice faded into hisses as she stormed back to her car, yanking off her heels in the driveway. Priya didn't follow. She stood still on the porch, arms wrapped around herself, watching me. I didn't know, she said softly. You did, I said. You just didn't want to get in the way. She looked away. I thought, if I kept the peace, it would balance out. I nodded. Keeping the peace and enabling abuse aren't the same thing. Rishi finally looked up. You really planned all of this? I had to, I said. You left me no choice. And for the first time, he didn't argue. The next morning, I woke up at Carl's lake cabin. It was quiet. No buzz of LED lights. No stomp of strangers' shoes across the floorboards. No one telling me to move my belongings. Just the sound of water slapping gently against the dock, birdsong drifting through the screen door. I made coffee and stood by the window, watching the fog lift off the lake. Carl came in still in his robe, scratching his head. How's it feel? Like breathing again. He grinned. You should have done it years ago. I nodded. Maybe. Then he reached over, handed me his phone. You're going viral, by the way. What? Someone filmed your little speech. That neighbor kid, Raj. It's all over TikTok. Father-in-law kicks out entitled in-laws from his own house during engagement party. You're a folk hero. I scrolled through comments. Hundreds of them. That man's my spirit animal. More power to him. Boomers taking their dignity back. Karen got what she deserved. Where's the Netflix series? I laughed. I didn't even know I had a TikTok. Apparently, I didn't need one. Rishi called later that evening. I didn't answer. He texted instead. Can we meet? I didn't reply until the next morning. One-on-one. Public place. Noon. We met at a small cafe off the highway. Rishi was already there, looking 10 pounds lighter from the shame. Dad, he said, voice quiet. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. I waited. I should have stood up. I should have protected your space. I nodded slowly. Why didn't you? He looked down at his coffee. I don't know. I guess I got used to them making decisions. I didn't want to be the odd one out. Priya. She always said it was easier not to argue. And you? I convinced myself it wasn't a big deal. I leaned forward. It was your job to make it a big deal. He didn't answer that. Instead, he swallowed hard and said, We're staying at her parents' place. Temporarily. Temporarily? I asked. He nodded. I don't know where we're going from here. That's up to you, I said. But you'll figure it out. He looked at me. Would you ever come over? Visit? I considered it. No, I said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I love you, Rishi. That hasn't changed. But I need distance from anyone who stood by while I was being disrespected in my own home. He nodded, slowly. I get that. And for once, I think he did. The funny thing about silence is that it feels foreign at first, almost like you're doing something wrong. That first week at the lake cabin, I kept expecting noise. A ringtone. A knock at the door. Somebody asking for something. But there was nothing. Just the creak of the porch swing, the wind brushing through the trees, and the soft tap of coffee against ceramic every morning as I sipped and watched the world keep moving. I kept waiting for guilt to show up too. It never did. Not once. Not even when Priya messaged me 10 days later. We moved out of her parents' place. Things are tense. Rishi's trying. That was it. No apology. No ownership. Just a vague report from a burned-out front line. I didn't answer. Some doors, once closed, don't need to be reopened. Not because there's no love behind them, but because the love isn't enough to justify what it costs to keep them open. I had spent too many years shrinking myself to keep the peace. Cooking for people who criticized the food. Hosting people who never thanked me. Allowing people to walk through my home like it was theirs because my son fell in love with a woman whose family thought marriage was a deed. Now, I made breakfast when I wanted. I let the dishes sit in the sink. I read the newspaper from front to back without interruptions. I played chess with Carl on the back porch every Thursday. And I started building again. Not big things, just benches, shelves, small projects that made my hands feel useful again. There's something honest about wood and nails. No pretenses. No politics. Just weight and measure, push and pull. Something real. A few neighbors from down the road came by one afternoon. An older couple who'd heard about my story from their niece in the city. "You're the one who kicked out the party people, right?" The man asked, grinning. I laughed. "That's me. We loved that video," his wife said. "My sister forwarded it to everyone." I shook my head. Didn't think I'd go viral by telling people to get out of my house. "You stood up for yourself," she said. "Not enough people do that anymore." Maybe she was right. Maybe that's why the story stuck. Not because I was dramatic, but because I did what so many people wanted to do and didn't. Set a boundary. Say no. Put myself first for once. The last message I got from Rishi came on a Sunday morning. "We're doing counseling. I don't know what will come of it, but I wanted you to know. I still think about the house." I get it now. I sat with that for a while. I didn't reply, but I saved the message. Some part of me was proud of him. Not for suffering, but for learning. For finally waking up to what it meant to let your voice be drowned out for the sake of harmony. The damage was done. But damage doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes, it's just the end of something you were never meant to carry in the first place. 2 weeks later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo from that doomed engagement party. Karen, arms folded, face red with fury, standing next to the photo booth sign that had been torn halfway down the wall. On the back, written in neat, pointed handwriting, were 6 words. "You ruined our family's reputation." I framed it, hung it above my workshop bench. A small reminder. That peace always comes at a price. And I'd pay it again in a heartbeat. Have you ever been pushed past your limit by family members who mistook your kindness for weakness? Drop your story in the comments. I want to hear about your moment of finally standing up for yourself. If this story hit a nerve, subscribe for more true-to-life tales where dignity doesn't come quietly. And sometimes, revenge is just setting a boundary and sticking to it.